homeowners, it's not a question of if, but when the next hurricane will come. No matter what Florida weather has in store, Storm Smart has products that protect every opening of your home while improving the look, feel, and function. From durable aluminum shutters, high-impact windows and doors, to our innovative storm catcher screens, products that enhance the beauty of your home and keep your family safe. Because smart is complete hurricane protection, and smart is peace of mind. Call Storm Smart today for your free in-home consultation.
When your power goes out, remember just how inconvenient your life can be. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have power when you need it. Our Generac generators automatically provide backup power after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Get a free 10-year warranty with the purchase of any air-cooled generator. Call Generac Generators today. Generac Generators. Life is primitive without power.
Got some clouds out there, even a couple of sprinkles as another front rolls through the area. Most of us wake up to sunshine and then very warm temperatures in the afternoon. Our temperatures, they're going up and they're staying up. Really nice forecast, especially if you're planning on going to the beach or the pool. Rain chances very slim. Another beautiful day in store. It's going to bring us a very high chance of storms. Some isolated showers across the area. Mother Nature likes to remind us that it isn't set by a calendar. We're always on it for you just in case things begin to pop.
Streaming from the ABC Action Weather Center in Studio A. This is Dennis Phillips Live. Sponsored by Storm Smart. Protect every opening of your home with Storm Smart. And by Generac Generators. Life is primitive without power.
How you doing, everybody? Tuesday night edition of Dennis Phillips Live. I was looking at your comments here. We've got a couple of people from Maine where it is snowing. So, you know, it has been... We've obviously been talking quite a bit about the severe weather across the Deep South, the tornado outbreak, that we've had two very significant tornado outbreaks, and then the flooding issues that's going on across the Tennessee Valley as well. And, you know, that is spring weather. I mean, it's very, very common to get, in fact, tornado season is March, April, and May. Not so much for our area, not so much for Florida, but for areas across the Deep South, it absolutely is. And unfortunately, you know, it's something that we see. It has nothing to do with, you know, long-term changes within the climate or whatever. And you've heard me say this so many times. It is such lazy journalism on a national scale when you hear a story that's written that talks about a severe weather situation, and then inevitably, the next line will be referring it and comparing it and associating it with climate change. We have had severe weather outbreaks forever, and we will continue to have severe weather outbreaks forever. Now, whether or not over a prolonged period of time, those outbreaks become more numerous, you know, less numerous, whatever the case may be, you know, that's up for debate, and that's something that a lot of folks like to debate. But, you know, I think back in 1974, when I actually decided that I really wanted to be a meteorologist. I mean, I grew up first not grow up, but I lived my first 7 years of my life in Seattle, and decided I wanted to be a TV meteorologist when I saw the TV weatherman tracking Santa on Christmas Eve. It's a true story. But when we moved to Detroit, the 1974 super tornado outbreak, which went from Windsor, Ontario, all the way down to the Deep South, and over 700 people died in that outbreak, and it was devastating. And that was back in the 70s. I mean, we get severe weather in the springtime. And when I see, well, we have spring storms, we have all these horrible storms, which we do, and it's because of this. It just drives me crazy. So you've heard me say that before. Now, this upcoming hurricane season, we're going to talk about hurricane season tonight. You know, as I think many of us learned last year, there's a lot of short-term variabilities that has a huge impact on hurricane season. And I bring up last year's Saharan dust. Because remember, the main area of Saharan dust was much farther north than it had been in previous years, or most common when it would be more to the south. And that really kept the tropics extremely quiet for most of June and July. In fact, there were a lot of people. I've got a heckler out there in my neighborhood, and anytime he gets a chance to try to push my buttons, he does. It makes me laugh. But put out there on social media. Oh, the weather guys, they don't know what they're talking about. We've had no hurricanes at all. It's going to be a quiet year. This was in September. So if you want to blame anybody for jinxing us from mid-September on, that would be the guy. Because look, these things change, obviously, week to week when we're talking about tropical weather and when we're talking about spring weather, which, as you see behind me with that 7-day, we're going to have some significant roller coaster rides over the next 7 to 10 days. So we'll get into that in a minute. I will talk about the forecast in a minute. Anna Maria, by the way, I noticed your hashtag signs, the hashtag chit chat, hashtag ban button. I had forgotten the ban button. I saw your comment and I ran back and got it, which I hit with my left hand now because my right hand still has a stress fracture from bashing it so many times during last hurricane season. You ridicule me, you mock me, but it's a true story. I really did. And Jules, so if you guys remember, and I hope you do, Kyle was on set with me and we were talking about NCAA tourney. And if you remember, yours truly went with the chalk, as it's called for the favorites, the Gators, Duke, Houston, and who was the fourth team? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Houston beat Duke, and Florida beat in the semis. Why am I drawing a blank? I don't, Auburn, right. So went with it, had Houston and the Gators in the finals and picked the Gators. Let me tell you, if you are a Gators fan, I think you definitely need to check your blood pressure. 3 games they could have, and you can even argue, they should not have lost to Auburn. They more than likely should have lost to Texas Tech, and they more than likely should have lost to Houston yesterday. And again, I picked the Gators to win it all. But when you're down as big as they were to Houston, a great defensive team, and down as big as they were to Texas Tech with literally a couple of minutes left, I mean, that is the Gators stepping up, and obviously Walter Clayton Jr., massive game against Texas Tech. Not so much, and by the way, they did against UConn too, not so much last night against Houston. That was more of a team effort that really, really did the job. So anyway, let's do Rob. Hello, how you doing, my man? Debbie in Riverview, good to see you. Alex, 73 in Bradenton, loving it. Kelly in Melbourne. Renee, how are you? Good to see you. We've got Snowy Maine in the house. Linda's son is in Scarborough. Sandra in St. Pete. And we've got Nicole, who is loving this cooler air, which we'll talk about the morning lows. And this weekend, it's going to be gorgeous. Mid-70s, sunny skies, low humidity, really, really nice. And again, 3 days ago, we were in the low to mid-90s. And is that drastic changes in the weather? No, it's spring. It's what happens in spring. I was talking to somebody else. I'll get to this in a second. Brooksville's in the house with Rob and, Renee. Holy cow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, there were some big storms across the Deep South, and tornado season, that is when it is. It really is. Thoughts to your family. Sarasota, Lisa's in the house. We are Penn State. We have got, do I think a busy tornado season means a busy hurricane season? Absolutely no relationship whatsoever. None at all. The two are completely different things. Let's see. I had my Gator colors on, Robin, today on the news. Yes, I did. Gayla, how you doing? Dominic, Newport Richie. Kim in Palm Harbor. We've got Jules again, as always. I know I always need the ban button. I can't believe how I forgot that. Let's see. Anna Maria, watch this. Watch the patronization. You might have given it to me, but I can still pull the trigger. So, Debbie, how you doing? Yeah, I see all you guys now. I'm scrolling down. I see Auburn was the team I couldn't remember. Marie from Hudson, good to see you. Frostproof's in the house. So let's go ahead and talk. I want to tell you what, let's go through the forecast, we'll look at the models, and then I'll start talking a little bit about hurricane season and the whole semantics of a once-in-a-generation flood, which the national media was picking up on a lot last year when we have a 1-in-100-year flood, what that actually means, because we're kind of getting close to that season. I know nobody wants to think about it. I'm with you. But, you know, we're now putting together our hurricane specials. We're now kind of getting ready for the upcoming season, which we are hoping / praying that it is going to be a quiet year. I don't think it'll particularly be a quiet year. It's just a matter of where these form and where they go, and it's that simple. And you know as well as I do, at this point, it's anybody's guess when it comes to that. We'll get into that in a minute. There's just no rhyme or reason to it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about, we had some rain, and I did mention this last night. I said this last night where I said, geez, I wonder if we're going to have some power outages while the basketball game is on. And sure enough, when that line came in and the storms came in, we had quite a few people in the Largo, Seminole area report power outages last night, just as the second half of the game got going. If I were y'all, I would have been livid, because if you're a Gator fan and you lose power, I can't even fathom that. But we did. We had some power outages last night as the line came in. Darlene has her electric fireplace on. Yes, it is fire pit weather tonight. It absolutely is. All right, temperatures right now. Remember, just 3 or 4 days ago, we were low to mid 90s. Now we're low to mid 60s. And we're going to see lower 50s tomorrow morning. 67 right now in Tampa, Newport Richey 67, Clearwater 63, Riverview 68, Lakeland and Bartow in the lower 70s as well. So most of Pinellas in the 60s. Clearwater only hit the 60s today. That's like 20 degrees colder than it was just a few days ago. Brandon right now at 69, Plant City 68, Ruskin 68. So, okay, I want you to look at that Lakeland number. The reason it's saying it's such a drastic change from yesterday is because there was bad data that came in yesterday, and it said it was 100 degrees out. So there are sensor issues, or there were sensor issues in Lakeland last night. So it is not 29 degrees colder in the last 24 hours. It's about 15 like everybody else. But it is not saying right now that it is 15 below in Brooksville. It is not saying it will be 15 below in Brooksville. It's just saying temperatures are 15 degrees colder right this minute than they were 24 hours ago in Brooksville and most of the area as well. Highs today. I mean, man, what a difference a couple of days make. 68 Clearwater, the high today. 71 St. Pete, 74 Tampa. The same Tampa that hit 94 last weekend. 75 in Plant City, 73 in Lakeland, 74 in Winter Haven. Ooh, nice sunset there. That's a live look outside Rivergate. It's a fiery sunset with mostly cloudy skies and 67 degrees. West winds at about 20 miles an hour. Loretta, how you doing? Good to see you. It is kind of breezy out there as well. Jennifer, it is not snuggle alert weather. Snuggling is optional, not mandatory tonight. So yes, I could put out a snuggle alert for just voluntary snuggling, snuggle at your own risk, but as opposed to mandatory when it really gets super cold. So I am not one to avoid the Q word, just like when I was watching, what was I watching a couple days ago? I think it was a game. Oh, it was Ryan's softball tournament, which they won. We were on that field from 7 a.m. until about 8 o'clock at night. 13 hours at Madeira Beach softball fields. Travel ball is nuts. Anyway, they were up big, and I'm like, this game's over. And of course, all the parents looked at me. Don't say that, you'll jinx them. Look, there's no such thing. I don't care. There's no such thing. If I had the power to make those changes, I would make the weather right all the time. But anyway, 74 the high today. The average high 81, 66 the low this morning, 63 normal. Records are 80. Wow, the record's 89. That's kind of low, considering the record over the weekend was 92, 93, 94. Anyway, there's a look at the satellite picture. Clouds are still lingering, but as that front or what's left of it moves south, we will continue to see clearing roll in across the area. So there it is. You have got to look at Futurecast, where skies are clearing tomorrow morning. We'll talk about the temperatures in just a second. Now look at that little spin off the East Coast. Remember the models were showing that about a week or 10 days ago. It's not going to do anything, but it may spin a bit of moisture back across our area on Thursday. Maybe there's enough for a couple of showers in inland spots. I wouldn't really worry too much about it, but I want you to look at what happens on Friday. Another front comes in. You see the rain in South Georgia. See that on Friday? So that's what we're looking at on Friday morning into the afternoon. And then on tomorrow morning, we start to see a rather significant cool down. It's going to last for maybe 12, 18 more hours, and that's it. So there you have it. You've got 59 tomorrow morning, Palm Harbor, 59 Oldsmar, 62 Clearwater, 61 Seminole, and Pinellas Park, 63 St. Pete. South Tampa, 61. West Chase, 59. Oldsmar, 59. Wesley Chapel, the WC, 55. Land O'Lakes, 55. Maybe 54. San Antonio, Dade City, 54. Brooksville, Spring Hill, 54. Low 50s, Crystal River, Homosassa. Upper 50s, Bartola, Lakeland, 58 Wauchula, 60 Venice, 60 in Sarasota, 58 in Lake Placid. So a very cool start to your Wednesday. Beautiful finish. Sunny skies, 80 degrees. It's going to be amazing. And Renee, you are right. We need rain. But unfortunately, this is the time of the year we traditionally do not see a lot of rain. And I don't think we're going to see it this go around either. I just don't. Maybe a quick shower in our northern counties on Friday. But look at, that's not Ron English, is it? No, it's Karen English. Yeah, because Ron English, you guys know. You guys know Ron, works here, has worked here, had his Gator paraphernalia on. He had his Gator pajamas in at work today. So look at Saturday and Sunday. That is some beautiful weather. 75 on Saturday, 79 on Sunday, and then next week we're back into the heat, mid to upper 80s. Boating forecast, north winds 15 to 25 knots, seas 3 to 5 feet. A little rough out there, moderate chop in the bay. Water temperature 75 degrees, and the wind's going to continue, Lopez, right through tomorrow. I think we might see it start to wind down a little bit. You still got that little area I talked about off to the east that's going to prompt a little bit more wind out there. So there's your beach forecast. Notice the winds, 10 to 15 all day long, with highs in the lower 70s and sunny skies. So a really, really nice day. There's the 7-day, 80 on Wednesday after a cool start, 83 on Thursday, maybe a shower in northern counties on Friday, 10% chance, 75 on Saturday, 79 on Sunday. Great weekend weather-wise. And then Monday and Tuesday, well, that's not a Florida thing, Renee. April showers are an up north thing. That is definitely not a Florida thing. Florida typically very dry in April and May, and we're usually in some sort of drought conditions or even fire dangers possibly, which brush fires are going to continue to be a thing until we get into the rainy season. And then the temperatures start to climb significantly by the middle of next week. So let's talk about a couple of things. We're going to start with the the forecast. Here's the GFS, okay? And the GFS brings us to Wednesday morning. Look at that little low off the coast. See it? East of Florida? Down here. See that right there? So the models have been showing that for the last week. So let's go back. So here we go. So here's the Euro. Takes us through Wednesday into Thursday. That low just kind of hanging out there, which is one of the reasons why it's going to stay breezy. And then watch the next front come in. See it over the Tennessee Valley? That's Friday morning. Friday afternoon. Look at your 540 line. 540 line makes it down to northern Georgia on Friday evening. The front comes through it should really pretty much be a dry front. I mean, there might be a couple of sprinkles on Friday afternoon. That's about it. The front comes through. There's some snow in western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and some snow in Maine. So for the folks in Maine who are here, there's some snow for you guys. Thank you, Loretta, very kind. So here's Sunday. Saturday and Sunday are going to be amazing days, lots of sunshine. All right, there's Monday. You got another storm brewing across the Great Lakes. 540 line retreats into the Ohio Valley. Maybe more snow for the Northeast next Tuesday or Wednesday. Pennsylvania all the way to the Northeast. And then we see, we've got another area of snow potentially about a week and a half out for the Ohio Valley and the Midwest. So spring weather, it's very, very common to get these cold snaps, and that's around Easter, by the way. This is Easter weekend. And there's the Euro extending it out. And, you know, unfortunately, the entire time, there's very little rain for us. So let me call the GFS up here. See what the GFS shows us. Okay, so here's the GFS. GFS also has that low area, low pressure. There's your front swing through. Your 540 line, again, extends into northern Georgia. That's the freezing line for those folks who aren't familiar with it. And then we're looking really beautiful as we start to warm up next week. There's still that snow across the northern Great Lakes and the Northeast. But for us, dry. Next weekend, this is Easter weekend. The GFS, I mean, that's so far out, you know, like whatever. But the GFS does try to bring a little bit of moisture back in, but nothing significant. So at the end of the day, it is going to be, as you would expect this time of the year, very dry. It's going to be chilly tomorrow morning, very pleasant. Saturday and Sunday morning, kind of cool, 50s again, with afternoon highs in the mid-70s. But there has been a ton of talk, you know, about the upcoming hurricane season. And look, after last year, I was telling this to somebody a couple days ago, like, look, we can say till we're blue in the face to prepare for hurricane season and to get ready. If after last year you decide that you're still not going to prepare, there's nothing in the world that I can say that's going to make you change your mind. Because after Helene and Milton, if that didn't get our attention, nothing will. Now, there are those who say, okay, we had our hurricanes. Maybe we're not going to have them again for quite a while. Let's hope that's the case. But you guys have heard the predictions, obviously. You've heard there's some things going on in terms of water temperatures, and it is worth addressing. I don't have a map for it, but what do I have on here? What did I call up? So if you look in May, you look in the month of May, and you look in the month of June, if there is any development in the tropics, it's usually in the Gulf or in the Northern Caribbean. Now remember, the overwhelming majority of May or Gulf systems are very weak because you don't have the energy of the dynamics in May and June that you will in August and September. So because the water is still relatively warm in this part, in the Gulf, and even in the Northern Caribbean in May and June, you could see some development. You look out in the Atlantic, there's nothing because the water is still too cold. And speaking of which, the water is very cold relative to normals in the Eastern Atlantic. So what does that mean? All right. And I'm trying to clear out this map here. Hold on. Computer's acting a little funky. All right. So let's talk about that. The tropical Atlantic, the Eastern Atlantic, as you see right there, the majority of the time those storms form, if you look at history, and I've showed you this map a lot of times, the majority of the time a storm forming that far out stays on the Atlantic side and not makes it into the Gulf. Now it does, I'd say 75% of the time. 25% of the time it could go into the Gulf or the Caribbean. But the majority of the time when you get a storm out there, they're going to take a track that rides along the Bermuda High and impact either the East Coast or the Carolinas or the Mid-Atlantic, or they go out to sea, fish storms. Statistically speaking, storms out there are more likely to take that track than storms in the Caribbean. Again, statistically, 70-75% of the time, let's say. Now, so if the development in the eastern Atlantic is held a little bit in check due to some colder water, if that were to be the case, then you would expect the odds of a significant storm might be a little bit lower on the East Coast, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, that sort of thing, the Carolinas, right? And that's where the cooler waters are right now. Doesn't mean it won't warm up, but right now that's where it is. The Western Caribbean and the Gulf are warm. So, given that being the case, if there were development to occur in those areas, they're more likely to develop because the water's warmer. You guys know there are so many other variables that come into play in how many storms form, in where they form, in where they track. But the one thing that is undeniable is if there is warm water, it is more likely that storms will get stronger. That is the one thing that does not change. Now, there might be other factors that keep it from developing. We all know that. Shear is one of them. Dry air is one of them. But if you have warmer water, you are more likely to see a more significant tropical system because it taps that warm water. It's that simple. So looking at the early season, with the Gulf being warm, and statistically, as you see right here, statistically, June is a month where and May sometimes, is a month where the Western Caribbean or the Gulf can see development. Now, again, they're usually weaker, but that would be the area I would think would see development sooner. Nothing unusual about that. But the fact that the Eastern Atlantic is cooler than normal will be monitored, because that could possibly minimize a risk for the East Coast of the U.S. Again, you guys know my thoughts on long-range predictions. Overall, I think they're a waste of time, because I think they're meaningless. If I sit here and say the odds are a little bit lower that you're going to have excess development in the Eastern Atlantic, but you still get one Cat 5 that barrels into Cape Hatteras, then it's not going to have been a quiet year. So it doesn't matter how many form. It matters how many impact, whether us, whether the northern Gulf Coast, whether the Atlantic, whatever the case, right? That's your ultimate question mark. So as we go into April, we're going to keep a closer look on the conditions of whether we're neutral, La Nina, El Nino. We're probably going to be neutral, which is a little more probable you would get a Caribbean developing. Look, if you're in an El Nino, the Caribbean shuts off. We saw that 2 years ago. There was literally no development in the Caribbean when we had a significant El Nino, like zero during hurricane season. Last year, we were closer toward La Nina, neutral to La Nina. You're getting a lot more development in the Gulf and in the Western Caribbean. And then you throw in the warmer water, then all of a sudden, you've got a more active cycle. So I'm not going to waste our time, your time, talking about long-range stuff in terms of how many, where, because nobody knows. And the long-range predictions, well, there's 60% likelihood to be hit here more than here, I don't even buy that. And I don't think it's helpful. 60 to 40, who cares? But what we will do is more on the 10 to 14-day scale. We will focus more on that as opposed to the long-range forecast. That's kind of the way that we're going here. All right, so, and Michael's asking about heat content. You know, it isn't just a matter of how warm the water is at the surface, it's how deep that warm water rides as well. Because if the warm water is deeper, then there's more energy. There's less upwelling to cause a storm to weaken, so that's another thing. So we'll talk more about that again on our Thursday night edition of DPL. Streamers, thanks for watching. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a good night. Facebook, we are still here. So yeah, and it's just, and the reason I talk about this is because, look, I get the same stories on my Facebook feed as you guys do. And I'm constantly berated with weather people who I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. And they're throwing in their 2 cents worth on a long-range forecast. The folks who invented long-range hurricane forecast was Bill Gray from Colorado State University back in the 80s. He pretty much recognized the relationship between El Nino and hurricane season. That was Bill. That was Dr. Gray. Passed away years ago. Phil Klotzbach took over. The department still runs. Phil was that, I've told you the story a lot. Phil was the wonderkind who I shared a cab with in the Bahamas, and him and his mom. He was like 13 years old. I'm serious. He was like 13, 14 years old. I can't remember. But you just knew he was like Doogie Howser. He was going to be really, really good at what he did. And they tackle the long-range stuff. I still say long-range hurricane forecast, and this is my opinion, is a waste of time because it doesn't tell us anything. If we say 25 named storms and they're all in the ocean, who cares? They don't bother anybody. If it's a quiet year, and see, I think this is the issue. This is my point. Let's say we predict a quiet season. Will you at home be less likely to be fully prepared if you think it's a quiet season? See, that right there is the important message, I think. And I think human nature is, if we say it's going to be a quiet year, you might not be as ready as you otherwise would be. Now in Florida, in our area, after Helene and Milton, if you're not ready, it's on you. I mean, I really believe that. After last year, if that isn't eye-opening enough of what a storm that never made impact in our area directly. Helene was 100 miles offshore, never made impact, and we still had massive devastation from flooding, from storm surge. From a storm that was 100 miles offshore, and we got no sustained hurricane winds in the Bay Area with Helene. None. And then you had Milton that made landfall, Siesta Key, so we had no surge at all in the Bay Area because all the water was being pushed out. So it could have made landfall, Pinellas, Pasco, and that would have been devastating. It would have been a 1-2 punch, but we didn't. So as awful as it was, we did not get the worst of those storms. So if people are going to blow off preps after last year, there ain't nothing on earth that I can say that's going to change their mind. So I'm not even going to try. But the people who are being prepared and trying to be prepared and proactive, we will talk about the things that we've learned last year, what worked, what didn't work, and hopefully we go unscathed this year. But I'm going to be focusing more on, I'll go 10 to 14 days because I think you can go 10 to 14 days in development. Now, can you go 10 to 14 days in track? Please. Every now and again, the models might do a good job on it. Irma is one of them. Helene was certainly one of them. But overall, I think the message needs to be, all right, you know what? There's something that could be developing in day 7, day 10. We're going to keep our eyes on it. The problem is you get the sites that cry wolf and are always showing the worst case scenario, and then they'll go to the next one when that doesn't happen, and go to the next one when that doesn't happen, and go to the next one when that one doesn't happen, and then finally they get one right because they get one right. The models get one right, right? I mean, I will quote James Spann, who's a meteorologist in Birmingham. The guy's kind of a dean of weather in Alabama. And there's a story behind this. And you guys know I'm buddies with Mike Boylan and have been for a long time. Mike's a great guy. And Mike Mike has no formal education in meteorology, but he's self-taught. And there's a lot of people in the world who are really, really successful and very smart being self-taught. So you're never, ever going to hear me minimize anything like that. But James came out and said, any drunk donkey can post the 10-day Euro. That was his quote. And by the way, that's how Mike got his name on a lot of his merch, Drunk Donkey. It came from James Spann. Now then a meteorologist in Georgia, I think, took his comment and said it as well. And Mike's fans just annihilated this person, like really went after her. But that came from James. And it's true. Any drunk donkey can post the 10-day Euro. The question is, what do you do with that? Do you just tell people, and again, Mike and I have had this discussion, as is Paul and I over at Fox, and we a lot of us are good friends in this market, a lot of the Mets, and the messaging this is the key to it. To me, the messaging is as, if not more important than the actual forecast. Truly believe that. Truly believe that. How that message gets across to people can be life-saving, right? Because if you are efficient at messaging and relating to people, and they're hearing the possibilities and what we know and what we don't know, and they can make an educated decision on what they do and how they protect their family, that's huge. And honestly, to me, a lot of people have asked me, will you tell people to evacuate? And I've done a lot of speaking engagements lately, and this is the one I talk about more often than anything. I will never, ever tell somebody that they should evacuate. And I'll tell you why. Because if I say to somebody, you need to evacuate, and then they get in a car wreck in their evacuation and die, I wouldn't be able to do the job anymore. It would be so devastating that I don't think I could do the job, because I would always be wondering what's the message. So what I will say is what I think is going to happen in a certain area. And I will even share what my family's doing, because you guys know I'm pretty transparent about that stuff. But I will never answer, should we evacuate, because of that very thing that I said. And I don't think I would ever be able to handle that kind of a situation. So again, hurricane season. It's coming up in 7 weeks. Right now, the Eastern Atlantic is well below average temperature-wise with the water. It's a great thing. We'll see if it continues. But below average doesn't mean it's not warm enough to support tropical development. 80 degrees is the magic number for tropical development. If the average is 85 and it's 83, you'll see those big blue colors on there. Oh, look how below normal it is. It's 2 degrees below normal. Yeah, but it's still plenty warm enough for hurricanes to develop. So you got to listen to the messaging and stay off the sweeping generalizations that go on in long-range hurricane forecasts, which the majority of the time are just a bunch of malarkey, and they're not meaningful, and at the very least, they're not helpful in determining how you proceed and prepare for the upcoming hurricane season. All right? So that's kind of my thoughts on that. And again, for the local forecast, tomorrow we start 50s, we end 80. Another front Friday, we cool off Saturday and Sunday. Great weekend ahead. The rule number 7, crooked thumb meet and greet. We're trying to pinpoint the date. There's been some questions about the date. I'll have more about that coming up. Originally it was going to be May 31st. I can't make May 31st now, so it's going to have to be the 24th if I'm going to be there for the meet and greet. So but they're definitely putting the rule number 7 stuff. In fact, you know what? I will show you. This is, maybe I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because you guys know me. Let me show you what the new cans are going to look like. This is pretty cool, but I don't know if I can find it. I thought I had it here, but now I don't see it. Oh, that's too bad. What a tease. Darn it, I did have it. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so this is, remember before they were suspenders, right? So this is what the new ones are going to look like. They haven't finished it yet, but this is kind of what the beer cans are going to have on there. With like, I told them I've lost weight since they took this picture, so they need to make it a little thinner. But can you see? There's a blurry. Anyway, so there it is. So that's what the crooked thumb rule number 7 cans are going to look like. That's coming up for hurricane season. So anyway, all right, guys, I think that is about it. A lot of public appearances coming up over the next 6 weeks. So I will share one other thing. For the USF graduation on May 11th, I think, I'm receiving a pretty cool award from the president of USF. And along with the award, I have to give a commencement address that is scaring me beyond belief. You guys know me. I can talk and talk and talk until the cows come home. But it's usually about weather or sports or family or whatever, right? But this one's a little different. They're like, hey, we have a teleprompter if you want to use it. I'm like, no, I can't read. I'm not good at reading the prompter because it sounds like I'm reading. It doesn't sound like me. But this is, I'll be honest, I'm a little freaked out by it. I kind of am, because I've been asked before to do it, and I've never done it because, you got to be inspirational, motivational. You can't be so irreverent like I sometimes am. Like, I might say, education and joke, and I'm like, I can't say that. So anyway, that's going on in May at USF graduation, so that's going to be fun. But we'll see. I don't know. I actually wanted to watch Matthew McConaughey's speech. He had a really popular one last year or year before, and it went viral, and it was kind of pretty much telling people, look, you got to do this yourself. He didn't candy coat things, but I thought it was a very interesting speech. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But anyway, that's coming up. We're doing some expos, quite a few hurricane expos, having a thing next Tuesday over at the Florida Aquarium. I can't keep track of them. But it's obviously a busy stretch for us and, again, for folks preparing for this upcoming hurricane season. So anyway, we will see how it goes. And hey, Bridget, how you doing? So I will be back on Thursday. I will also tell you, so I talked to management and whatnot, and I told them, I'm like, look, I think during hurricane season, DPL has to always be a half hour. Maybe it could be 15 minutes. I don't know. But I think we need to do it Monday through Friday, because I found that, as things change quickly, it's just better to have appointment viewing. So I'm planning on pretty much doing this Monday through Friday from June, during hurricane season, from June 1st on. It may not always be a half hour. It may just be a quick little update. But obviously June, usually a quiet month. I use the Q word again. Same with July. But then August, everything always opens up. So we're going to be doing that. So, all right, guys. Well, have a great night. And congrats to the Gators. And congrats to my bracket, because I won my pool. Yes. And hopefully you tailed me, because I sat here and gave you all those selections for free, and maybe you won a little money out of the deal. That's the hope. So you guys have a great night, and we'll have a DPL Plus coming up next Wednesday, I think. I'm trying to get LSG on this, Lauren St. Germain, because you guys know Lauren is, she's over there. Lauren's funny, and I think DPL allows the anchors and the reporters to kind of be a little bit more of themselves, and you see a side of them that you might not see on TV, and I love that, because it's an enjoyable thing to kind of get to know somebody a little bit better, more on a personal level, which is why I love DPL in the first place. We know each other on personal levels. So anyway, you guys have a great night, and I will see you on Thursday night on our next edition of Dennis Phillips Live. See you guys.